What's going on, guys? Welcome to the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today I've got a mock draft video for you guys featuring the Gardner Minshew challenge, which is a new challenge that was put out a couple days ago by Bud Light, where if you take Gardner Minshew in the first round of your fantasy football draft and screenshot it and send it to their company, you'll get a free case of Bud Light on them. And if you end up winning your league with Gardner Minshew in the starting lineup, you end up getting, I believe it's a case per month for the next year. So, quick disclaimer, I am actually not eligible for this challenge. I am underage, so will not be participating. But I'm here to show you dads out there how to take advantage of this strategy and how to draft a championship caliber team with Gardner Minshew not only going in the first round, but with the first pick. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so of course here with the first overall pick, you have to go Gardner Minshew here. I'm picking the first pick in the draft just as a means to show you that you can actually do this. I'm going to be showing you how to do it in a 12-team league, and obviously a smaller league such as like 4, 6, or even an 8-person league is far easier to do this challenge with. But I'm actually going to be attempting to build the best team that I can with Gardner Minshew going as the first pick in a 12-team draft. So as the picks are coming back to me here in the second and third round, I will be picking back-to-back. And you cannot even debate this. You have to go running back here. You're never going to have a chance if you wait for it to come back to you in the fourth and fifth round. So, and this is a PPR draft as well. So you have to hit on running back early. And you have to pick players that you're extremely confident in and think have high upside, because you're going to need the rest of your team's upside to hit in order to carry your team into contention with taking Gardner Minshew ridiculously early based off of where he should be going. Because in a normal league, you could get him in the last round of your draft. But obviously, that's not what we're doing here for this challenge. So with my second round pick here, I want nothing to do with James Conner. I'm not a James Conner believer whatsoever. But two names that are kind of intriguing to me at this spot are Todd Gurley of the Atlanta Falcons, who I think has RB1 upside, and also I kind of like Chris Carson. Carson is a guy who I think he led the NFL in games with 20 or more touches last season. So I'm going to go there in the second round, and then in the third round, I'm going to pick Todd Gurley just because while based off ADP, those are a bit of reaches, going Gardner Minshew in the first round is going to kind of set the rest of your draft into a funk. So you're going to have to pick guys that you're not exactly in love with, but you're going to have to hope that their upside plays out for you and you get a big hit in return on value. So coming back here now in the fourth and fifth round, let's look at the board here. I'm actually going to go running back again, just because you need to make sure that taking Minshew that early, you have a guy that you're confident in and that you believe is startable. So with that being said, I'm going to take Raheem Mostert here in the fourth round, and then I'm going to turn around and pick Deandre Swift in the fifth round. And these are two guys who I think are a bit more risky in fantasy than the first two guys I picked, but I think they could actually potentially pose a higher reward for your team. So Deandre Swift is a guy who I think is going to be highly efficient with the Lions, and Kerryon Johnson in his short career has shown that he just can't stay on the field. I think Swift is a guy who only needs 10 to 12 touches to get 100 scrimmage yards and maybe even a score. So, and especially I think that he'll get the passing work too. So add in those passing points, and I think that he's a great player to flex right off the bat, or at least after a couple weeks. And then Raheem Mostert is a guy who I think has the chance to be a rare occurrence in a Kyle Shanahan offense, and I think he can be a RB1 workhorse. So he showed he can be highly efficient and productive with his touches. He had huge games in the back half of that regular season run last year and into the postseason for the 49ers. So for picking a extreme sleeper quarterback in the first round, I'm liking how this team is shaping up so far. And then going into the fifth round or the sixth round here, I'm going to get a guy at wide receiver 1 who I absolutely love, and that's Tyler Boyd. Do I think Tyler Boyd is necessarily a lock to be a wide receiver 1 this season? Absolutely not. But Tyler Boyd is a player who has posted back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with 5 and 7 or 8 touchdown. One season he had 5 touchdowns, and the other he had 7 or 8. I don't remember what the number was exactly, but he's an extremely safe floor play. And based off of the other positions that I've taken so far, he's a great combination. I've got guys at running back who are extremely high upside but might have relatively low floors, especially Raheem Mostert, whereas Boyd is going to be kind of a safety net in the fact that he is not going to bust. I think that he has a chance to be the wide receiver 1 with Joe Burrow because I think A.J. Green is past his prime, so I think that Tyler Boyd at the 6'12 is an extremely high upside pick. And then pairing with him, I'm actually going to go Will Fuller here. I think this is looking kind of similar to another mock draft that I actually did not too long ago. But that's kind of what happens. I mean, you pick your players and then you find them at their AADP or where you have them valued at. And Will Fuller is a guy who I think Deshaun Watson is going to fall in love with now that DeAndre Hopkins is gone. And especially the fact that Will Fuller has been productive in his career up to this point. The only thing that's really held him back has been injuries. And Will Fuller is a very talented player who I think could actually post 12 to 1,300 yard receiving numbers along with roughly 95 to 110 catches potentially, because there's not really much else to throw to for Deshaun Watson. He's just got a bunch of guys, and no one really has proven that they can separate themselves from the pack, except I think that Watson prefers Fuller in this offense, and so that's why I went with him here. The injury risk obviously makes him have a bit of a lower floor, but I think that when he's on the field, the ceiling is fantastic, and there was no one I would have rather had at that pick. Continuing on here, we're just going to keep hammering away at those skill position players because in order to win this challenge, you have to have Gardner Minshew in your starting lineup and pick him in the first round. So you might as well at this point invest into Gardner Minshew as your full-time starter. And so with that being said, I'm going to take a couple guys here who I think are nice plays. And the first of them is Marvin Jones Jr. I think Marvin Jones is a guy who's heavily slept on in fantasy due to the fact that Kenny Golladay is on the same team as him. But last year on a points per game basis, I've been saying this over and over in my mock draft videos, Kenny Golladay scored less than a point more than Marvin Jones in PPR formats. Like, Marvin Jones' value down here at the back of the 8th round is exceptional compared to that of Kenny Golladay, who goes in like the 2nd round at times. As a matter of fact, in this league, in this mock draft that I'm doing here, Kenny Golladay went in the 3rd round in this draft. And to get someone on the same team who's 5 rounds later and posts just as high of a upside as Golladay does, especially when he's playing the Minnesota Vikings. If you haven't followed Marvin Jones throughout his career, he has been exceptional against the Vikings and just tends to bully their defense. So start Jones whenever you get the chance when he's playing in Minnesota. But anyways, on to the 9th round here. I'm actually going to pick another upside player. I'm kind of choosing here between taking Kerryon Johnson or Chase Edmonds. And while sometimes it's nice to have that handcuff, I feel like this is a running back situation where it can be kind of a headache if you don't know which one to start on a given week with Johnson or Swift. So I'm actually going to take Chase Edmonds here. A bit of a change up for me. Kenyon Drake was in a walking boot the other day, and his coach just a few days prior had actually said that Chase Edmonds possesses all the skills that a starting running back needs in the NFL. So I'm extremely high on Chase Edmonds and the value that he can produce in some weeks, and I'm not really a Kenyon Drake guy, so I really like the opportunity that he has there, and if he has a chance to start 1 or 2 games, I could see potentially Drake not getting back into that RB1 role and Chase Edmonds handling the carries down the stretch for that team. Into the 10th round here, I am looking for someone I had to fade the tight end a bit because I had to reach on Minshew in the first overall pick. So I'm actually going to look to draft a guy here who I think has really high upside with Matt Stafford on the field, and that's TJ Hopkinson. The board says it's a bit of a reach, but for me, Hopkinson is my guy here left on the board. There's not too many guys. There's maybe two more players that I would have been comfortable picking at the tight end position, but Hopkinson was very efficient in fantasy and very productive when Matthew Stafford was his quarterback last season. He really only started to fall off a cliff when David Blau came into the lineup, and that's when we really saw Hopkinson deal with his injuries as well. So there's a few things kind of working against Hopkinson in 2019, rather, and I think that's what kind of derailed his fantasy value. So here in 2020, I expect him to jump into that top 10 tight end range with Stafford as his quarterback, assuming that they can both stay healthy in 2020. So in the 11th round now, I'm going to look to snag another receiver who I like, and not a very hard decision for me here. I'm going to end up going Christian Kirk. And Kyler Murray said it himself. He thinks that Hopkins, Kirk, and Fitzgerald will be 1,000-yard receivers this season. And I see Kirk being the number 2 in that offense. Fitzgerald is a great, legendary player in this league. But at this point in his career, I believe he's age 36 or 37. He's just past his prime, and it's going to be extremely hard for him to be the player he once was. So, and I think that Kirk is an ascending player. I think he's going into his 3rd season now. So I think that Kirk's going to take that next step up, and Kyler Murray is going to find him for maybe around 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns or so. So I think that in the 11th round, Kirk is an extremely valuable player who can turn low draft capital investment into high upside reward for you this season. And then here in the 12th round, I'm picking my favorite handcuff running back, and that, of course, is Justin Jackson. And Justin Jackson is a guy whose talent I'm extremely high on. When I've watched him play, he's been an extremely smooth runner and very efficient with the football in his hands. I think that he's actually a good running back in this league, unlike a lot of other handcuffs out there that people just draft because they have good situations. I think that player skill is slept on highly in fantasy football. I think it's not taken into consideration enough how good a player is with the ball in their hands, and Justin Jackson is a guy who I am a firm believer on. I think that he has very, very high fantasy potential when he's on the field, and if he sees around 10 touches a game, or barring an Austin Eckler injury, like Justin Jackson could legitimately be a RB1 producer when he's on the field in that role. And I think especially if Justin Jackson is getting those carries per game with Eckler in the mix, I think that might be one of the most lucrative fantasy backfields in 2020. People are extremely low on the Chargers offense, but I beg to differ. I love the Chargers this season, and I will not shy away from their fantasy players in 2020. I need to make kind of a quick pick here, so I'm actually going to go for my second quarterback, and I am going to take Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill is just a guy who I feel comfortable with on my bench. I don't ever think that he hosts a higher upside than Gardner Minshew on a given week, barring matchup. And I think that he's just a really efficient player. The Titans aren't going to throw the ball all that much, but Ryan Tannehill is just a guy who can get it done for you. And honestly, in the 13th round, it's a perfect pairing with Gardner Minshew because you're going to be able to start Minshew every week and feel comfortable with it and not have that thought in the back of your head like, I wish I was starting my other guy. Getting close to the end of the draft here, I think I'm going to go with a defense now. I think it's time to pick up on a team that I feel confident in, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With Tom Brady taking over that offense, I think it's actually going to be more of a help for their defense. The drop in turnover rate is going to be huge for this team, and their defense is going to be a million times fresher. Jameis Winston had that team on the field like every 2 minutes, and they were just dogging out there because they were just exhausted. they had to play so often because Jameis would turn the football all over like it was his job, when in reality he wanted to be throwing touchdowns, that the Bucs defense never really had a chance. They had nice sack numbers and they were the number one team against the run last year, but they only have upwards to go in 2020 because they're going to be fresher, they're going to be playing better situationally, and they're going to have better personnel. Shaq Barrett is legit, Vita Vea is legit, and they've got some young, promising corners in that secondary. I think that Tampa Bay is a very high upside defense this year. Now here in the 15th round, I'm going to take my last skill player, and that's going to be Jonnu Smith, the Titans tight end. So I'm going to pair him with Ryan Tannehill and use him as kind of a backup option in case my previous tight end, TJ Hopkinson, doesn't exactly pan out for me. I really think he will, but just in case, Jonnu Smith is a great insurance option to have. I'm personally a guy who likes to go big on the tight end early strategies, but if you're a person that likes to fade the tight end, I have zero problem taking Jonnu Smith or Chris Herndon in the later rounds. I think they're guys who could post top 6 tight end potential. It's just a matter of if they can get done or not. And obviously, it's a bit more of a gamble than if you were to take a different player. However, I think that Smith is a very safe guy in 2020. I actually lied. I do have one more spot for a skill player. Unless I want to grab a kicker here. No. Kickers can wait till the last round. They're irrelevant in fantasy football. I'm actually going to come out here and I'm going to take Ito Smith. I just want to feel safe. Todd Gurley with that knee especially, that if something were to happen to him, I would have the next man up and the guy who would take a lot of the pass-catching role. So I'm extremely comfortable with Ito Smith here in the 16th round. Obviously, people at this point in the draft are just dart throws, and it's more of an insurance option for the way this team played out in general. But now in the 17th round with my last pick, it's time for defense, or excuse me, a kicker. So my top guy on the board here, I would have to say, I love Crosby and his accuracy, but he doesn't quite have his leg anymore. I think we're going to go Jake Elliott for Philly here. Kickers are a crapshoot. You never know which one's going to be good on a given year. It's something very hard to predict, and it's honestly annoying. I wish kickers weren't in fantasy football, but the reality is a lot of the leagues that you guys are playing in have kickers, so I just figured I'd include them in this mock draft. So with that being said, that is the conclusion of the mock draft. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly appreciated. It's free, and it only takes a couple seconds. And with that being said, I will see you guys next time. Be on the lookout for more fantasy football content daily, or Madden content for that matter, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.